Shock Piece: The Search for Freedom, a novel by C. Nguyen. Chapter 43: The Morning After. July 2011. More than a quarter of a century had gone by, like the blink of an eye. The young girl had grown into a mature woman. Throughout the years, many things had changed, and she was broken and mended. The clanking noise from the council garbage truck at dawn, echoing from the street, woke Drin in a state between alertness and drowsiness. Between the two phases of twilight, Drin dutifully searched her memory to see whether the garbage bin outside had to be collected. Then she felt happy and relieved that it had been, and she came to total wakefulness. She reached up to grab her mobile phone on the night table and was disappointed looking at the time. It was just past 5 o'clock in the morning. The darkness had not dissipated as happened with most of winter days. Curiously, on almost every Monday morning, she had this sort of occurrence as a punishment for her forgetfulness. Luckily for her, this time she was still able to stay in bed with the knowledge that her duty had been fulfilled and the garbage bin was out. What a relief! Other times, Drin had to sit upright and jump off the bed, rushing with all the speed her legs could muster to charge after the garbage truck, hurriedly pulling along her bin in time to empty its contents for that week. On the other hand, perhaps that part of the household chores had never been registered as her duty. Normally, it belonged to the man of the house. Drin was not out of the habit of letting someone else do it, or so it seemed. Forgetfulness was one of the traits coming with age, and just like macular degeneration, hers seemed to come along earlier than expected. The discovery of that ill omen from a routine eye checkup with the optometrist yesterday was still fresh in Drin's mind. Some spots of light had started to filter through the curtains. They were in a shade of pastel yellow, mingling with bouquets of dark chrysanthemums in the center of large green leaves, scattering here and there with small blue roses. Still lying in bed, she closed her eyes and tried to recollect the images of flowers and leaves after a few minutes of concentration. To her disappointment, what she could see with her closed eyes was just black and white, a plain darkness. Her imagination must have tricked her with the white image void of all colors. The human mind seemed to be unable to fabricate color images with closed eyes in wakefulness. Regardless of how many times she had tried, they were just black and white. How sad it would be if she could not recall her colorful environment the day when she lost her sight. What if everything was plain black and white, like old pictures of a century ago? With this thought, she turned her head to observe her 10-year-old son, who was lying next to her as the comfort that she treasured most till the time he would decide to move to his own bed. Using all her effort to take a photographic memory of his features into her eyes before closing them again, she tried to recall his face. Lucky for her, this time as a reward of her concentration and will, she was able to flash back to his image momentarily in her darkness. Perhaps this was due to the most recent memory that her mind had collected just then. But if she had to remember some other faces she had not seen for a while, then she knew it was impossible. Memory of faces was also fragile if it had not been refreshed from time to time. She had to start collecting them now and wished that the images she cared to keep could be refreshed daily. Knowing that it was futile going back to sleep, she got out of bed and switched on the lights in the dining room to see that Cadbury, her border collie with its usual habit, was already sitting patiently outside the French window. Her nose was glued against the pane. Her intelligent eyes followed her owner's movements, mesmerized. It was not long ago that she was only a tiny pup, chubby and round, with a smooth brown chocolate coat, and was as cute as a bear cub. Drin bought her as a Christmas present for Eddie, but naturally she had become Drin's companion ever since. Her tail wagged in increasing momentum with her owner's approach. The moment Drin let her inside gently, patting on her head, she laid down immediately, her entire body pressing heavily on Drin's feet as a reassurance of togetherness. Satisfied after a few pats, she changed her posture, lifting her paws in the air, belly up, confidently waiting for a rub. Her face lit up with glee. Their routine cuddles every morning preceding the usual walk were always the highlights of her day. She then followed Drin's every step and obediently sat down, tail wagging frantically, unable to hide her excitement when Drin reached up to the hook behind the door to get her leash. She was going for a walk. With Cadbury's leash firmly in her hand, Drin walked out into the damp, cold air, breathing in deeply and glad that it filled her head with calmness. Though she was still apprehensive about the recent discovery, with the lingering thoughts at dawn and the warning from yesterday, she attempted to reconstruct the surrounding scenes like when she first woke up. Drin put each bush, each tree, and every flower into perspective as if one day they would not materialize in her sight. The Jamaica bushes, one cream and one pink, in someone's garden were blooming with elegant flowers. Many were strewn on the ground, some petals brown and discolored, their fate as pitiful as most discarded flowers, a sad comparison with their luckier companions still proudly perched on the branch. There was a whole bunch of sugar bananas with many green budding hands growing against the fence. The owner had placed some protective nylon over it to preserve its growth, hoping the bitter cold wind and frost would not prevent them from blooming into full maturity. Regardless of his attempt, she still saw a small unripe bunch lying on the grass in a far corner. Some kid must have had it down just for fun of meddling around. A rose bush had only bare branches now, naked of any stunning blooms. The wattle trees with various bouquets of freshly blossoming tiny golden flowers proudly brightened up the gloomy winter sky. Orange and mandarin trees were growing wild on the council land, their branches laden heavily with big, attractive, bright-colored fruits, many littering the bare ground, waiting in vain to be picked up by passers-by. Unfortunately, no one was interested, leaving them to rot. A guava tree standing illegally on council land was also showing some midget, undeveloped fruit, their growth stunted in the cold weather. A flock of herons, legs as skinny and long as ballet dancers, were gliding gracefully down the grass like fairies descending from heaven and inspecting the earth for places to land. Their elongated, elegant necks and black, thin, pointed beaks added to the effect of fineness and austerity in their look. In contrast to them, the grey pigeons were waddling about, good-natured, plump, and homely as contented housewives, with necks that disappeared completely under the thick layers of feathers. Again, she tried to put all of these images in her mind, using the photographic memory she was so proud of, in an attempt to reconstruct them with closed eyes. In the darkness and as best as she could, sadly, what she saw was devoid of all colors. All shades of pink, green, blue, yellow, indigo, etc. disappeared. It was a strange sensation, as if her world had become black and white, What if one day she could not differentiate any color and all the scenes? The wonders of nature had blended indistinctly. If all faces and features had gone blurry, then how was it possible she could describe them as effectively as she had seen? Drin knew that her memory would fade with time without images. Still, filled with gratitude, she realized that at least she was lucky to be able to see things as clearly as they were at this stage.